I never thought I'd be the guy who walked out his own wedding. Nobody imagined that, right? You picture the future, the wife, the family, the quiet life you're building. You don't picture standing in a small stuffy room minutes before you're supposed to say I do, staring at the woman you love and realizing you don't know her at all. My name is Alex. I'm 32. For the past 7 years, my world revolves around Sarah. She was funny, smart, beautiful. And we built a good life together. We bought a house, navigated career changes, supported each other through the usual ups and downs. Why propose a year and a half ago? It felt like the natural next step. We spent over a year planning a wedding, the venue, the band, the guest list. Every little detail felt like a step towards a forever. It cost a fortune, involved in spreadsheets and a surprising amount of stress. But it was stress building our future. But there is always a shadow in our relationship, a constant unwelcome third presence. Mark was Sarah's childhood best friend. They'd known each other since they were 5. Through thick and thin, on the surface, he seemed alright, charming, quick-witted. But beneath that, I always felt this weird possessiveness, this subtle way he'd tried to position himself closer to Sarah than anyone else. Whenever I brought it up, even gently, saying his constant presence felt a little much. Sometimes Sarah would instantly jump through his defense. "Oh, that's just Mark," she'd say, rolling her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "He's like the brother I never had." Or, "You're just jealous, Alex. He's harmless." My concerns were always downplayed, always dismissed. It was the one recurring point of friction in an otherwise stable relationship, and looking back, that should have been a massive red flag. I chose to ignore the wedding planning, only amplify the issue. Market certain himself into everything. He had strong opinions on a suit I was getting fitted for, the music choices, the seating chart. Sarah, want to avoid conflict with him, would constantly defer to his preferences or pressure me to compromise. It wasn't just advice, it was a demand for involvement. Sarah enabled it. Every step of the way. It felt less like planning our wedding and more like navigating their joint approval process with me as a necessary, slightly inconvenient addition. That uneasy feeling, that persistent shadow of Mark, was definitely there on the morning of the wedding. Despite the excitement, the perfectly tailored suit I was wearing, the buzzer, the groomsmen getting ready with me, my best friend David among them, there was a knot in my stomach. I wasn't nervous about marrying Sarah. I was nervous about how the day would unfold, with Mark inevitably centered and Sarah's attention, and my concerns about it once again being shrugged off. Or even tried to talk to Sarah about a few days before, about setting clear boundaries with Mark on our wedding day. And she'd gotten defensive, accusing me of trying to control our friendships. Right before the biggest day of our lives, I dropped it, hoping foolishly that the significance of the day would change things. It didn't. The history of Sarah's blind spot for Mark wasn't just about wedding planning. It was a long, frustrating pattern of him intruding in her, prioritizing his perceived needs or comfort in avoiding conflict with him over mine. It wasn't always dramatic, but the accumulation was soul-crushing. There was the time about 3 years ago, I had a critical presentation for a major client. I've been working on it for weeks, pulling late nights. The night before, I was polishing the final slides at home, stressed, but feeling prepared. Sir was supposed to be just quietly there, offering support, maybe helping me rehearse them. All called frantic. Something about his pipes bursting, his apartment flooding. Sarah immediately went a crisis mode. "Oh my God, I have to go. He needs me." I tried to reason with her. "Sarah, I have this huge thing tomorrow. Can't his landlord handle it? We're a plumber." But she was already grabbing her keys. She rushed over to his place. She was gone for hours. She came back late, exhausted, recounting the drama. I found out later from mutual friend that it wasn't a flood, it was a slightly overflowing toilet that his building, assuming fixed in 20 minutes. Market basically called her away on false pretenses just because he was bored or wanted attention. When I expressed how abandoned I felt, how stressed that was, having to finish everything alone, Sarah, his side, "He really needed me, Alex. You're being selfish to make it about you when he was dealing with an emergency." It was like my feelings, my critical work situation didn't matter compared to Mark's minor inconvenience. Another time, I planned a surprise anniversary getaway for us, a cozy cabin upstate. I'd booked months in advance, looking forward to a few days, just the two of us. Sarah mentioned it to Mark a few days before we left. Suddenly Mark decided he wanted a weekend trip to and unbelievably booked the cabin just a few miles away for the exact same date. Sarah was thrilled. Isn't that a funny coincidence? It's now we can hang out. My heart sank. I tried to explain that I planned this as a romantic getaway for us, sir. Just brushed it off. Don't be silly, Alex. It'll be fun. You'll be me not to see him if we're so close. So a romantic anniversary trip turned into a trio adventure every evening. We didn't have Mark's cabin or hours listening to him and Sarah reminisce, share inside jokes, basically relive their shared history. While I sat there feeling like a stranger, why try to pull Sarah aside and tell her how I felt? She accused me of trying to control her she spent time with and call me pathetically jealous. Mark also had this habit of subtle jabs disguised as jokes. He made comments about my stable but not glamorous job compared to serious potential. He'd joke about her while days before she settled down with me, always with a look at Sarah like they shared a secret, a wink that excluded me. He'd even praise her ex-boyfriends and in front of me, talking about how exciting or successful they were. Serious reaction, always a laugh or our own Mark stop it directed at him, followed by a look at me that said, see, he's just kidding. Why are you so sensitive? It was death by 1,000 paper cuts, constantly undermining me, while Sarawak watched, implicitly endorsing it by her action. Worst of all, I discovered that Sarah shared deeply private details about our relationship with him, arguments we'd had, my personal insecurities. I confided in her, even intimate moments. I found out when Mark made a casual comment that referenced something I had only ever tell old Syrian confidence. When I confronted her, hurt and feeling utterly betrayed, she genuinely didn't seem to grasp the severity of it. Is my best friend Alex. I tell him everything is not a big deal, but it was a huge deal. At men, our private space, our trust wasn't sacred to her. It was just more material for her and Mark to bond over. All of this history, all these moments of feeling secondary, dismissed and betrayed, simmer beneath the surface. As I stood there on my wedding morning, I had pushed it all down, convincing myself that marriage would change things, that this commitment would finally make serious that we were the priority. The buzzing in my pocket wasn't just nerves anymore. My phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. It was a link, and below it a short, chilling text. Thought you should see the kind of man you're about to marry. This is going around. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked the link. It opened to a series of brain shots, made it look like direct messages for me to someone else. As I read them, my blood ran cold. The messages revealed they portrayed me as a cynical, manipulative user. Me confessing that I was only marrying Sarah for her family's money, which wasn't even true. Her family was comfortable, but we were actually independent. That I was secretly seeing someone else on the side. That I thought Sarah was naive and boring, and that I planned to leave, or one side secured something from her or a family. The language was coarse, derogatory, utterly unlike me. It was a complete fabrication designed to paint me as the worst possible a person. David, my best man. So my face, Alex, what's wrong? I handed him the phone. His eyes widened in horror. Then his phone buzzed in. Another groom's mints and another tax were flooding in his. Is true? What is going on? Heard something crazy. Someone showed David a group chat that had been created, filled with wedding guests, friends, cousins, even some older relative for both sides, and they're distributed widely with the same fake screenshots. The message above them, clear as day, was from Mark. His profile picture, his name. The caption read something like, sorry to do this to Sarah, but everyone needs to know the truth about Alex before she makes a mistake. It hit me like a physical blow. Mark, of course, it was Mark. Who else would do something so targeted, so cruel, and time it perfectly for maximum damage? My sister Emily rushed into the room. For face pale, she'd seen the mess. Ages heard the whispers spreading like wildfire through the venue. His guests arrived. Alex. Oh my God, it was Mark. He sent them to everyone. Panic, rage, humiliation, and a deep, sickening hurt washed over me. This wasn't just a boundary issue anymore. This was a full-blown malicious attack. My character, my reputation. and my relationship orchestrated by the man Sarah constantly defended. My first instinct of thought was Sarah. I need to find Sarah. She had to see this. She had to shut it down. She had to stand up for me. David and Emily helped me find her. She was in a room near the main hall getting some last-minute adjustments to redress, surrounded by bridesmaids, looking radiant and oblivious. I felt a wave of Niger, seeing her happy, beautiful face, while I was holding proof that a best friend was tearing my world apart. The contrast with jarring. I pulled her aside into a small empty office nearby. Emily and David followed, standing quietly by the door, their presence a silent form of support. Sarah looked surprised, a little annoyed. Alex, what is it? Is everything okay? You look terrible. My hands are shaking as I held out my phone, the screenshots glaring on the screen. Sarah, look at this. Mark sent these to everyone, to the guests, right now. She took the phone, her brow furrowing in confusion. As she read, her eyes widened for a split second. I saw shock. Then she handed the phone back and let out a nervous, disbelieving laugh. Oh my God, is what everyone's buzzing about? I just saw people on our phones looking weird. She chuckled again, a light dismissive sound that grated on my raw nerves. Seriously, Alex, this is obviously a joke. You know Mark. He is that totally twisted sense of humor. He's just messing around at some stupid, elaborate prank. He wouldn't never actually try to stop our wedding. My jaw dropped. A joke? My voice was dangerously low. Sarah, he said, fake messages claiming I'm cheating on you, that I'm marrying you for money. But I think you're boring to all our guests. Our families are here. My reputation is being destroyed right now. Do you think this is funny? Do you think this is a prank? She waved a hand dismissively. Come on, Alex, don't make such a big deal out of it. It's obviously not true. Nobody will believe it. It's just Mark being Mark. She glanced towards the door, where we could hear the faint murmur of arriving guests and the wedding music starting. Look, we're getting married in literally 10 minutes. Let's not make a scene about this. We can figure out later. Just ignored for now. Don't let him ruin our day. Don't let him ruin our day. My day was already ruined. My character was being assassinated in front of everyone we knew, and she was standing here tell me to ignore it, defending the guy who did it, and call my reaction making a big deal in that moment. Looking at her, hearing the ease with which she dismissed such a vile public attack, her immediate priority being avoiding embarrassment and protecting Mark's actions as mere jokes, I saw it all with horrifying clarity. This wasn't just about Mark anymore. About Sarah. It was about the years of enabling, the constant downplaying of my feelings, the unwavering prioritization of her comfort, and her bond with Mark over my emotional safety, my trust in now, my very public dignity. This moment, this ultimate betrayal of standing by the person as actively harming me, was the culmination of everything. A profound, almost surreal calm settled over me, the knot in my stomach untangled, replaced by a cold certainty. Sarah, I said, my voice steady despite the tremor on my hands. Look at me. She met my eyes, her expression in a mix of impatience and confusion. If you can stand here, I continued, right now, with proving your hand. Your best friend is spreading malicious lies about me to everyone we know, try to destroy a wedding and my reputation. In your first instinct is to defend him, to call it a joke, and to tell me to ignore it and not make a scene. Then I can't marry you. Her eyes widened. What, your refusal to stand up for me? I said the words heavy with finality. For us, against something so actively harmful. It shows me everything I need to know. It shows me that Mark will always come first. It shows me you don't respect me enough to defend me when it matters most. I can't build a life, a marriage on that if you're overreacting. She stammered, stepping towards me. We're about to get married. You're letting him win. Don't be crazy. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. I'm not overreacting. This is the reaction I should have had years ago. This is about Mark's actions anymore, Sarah. This is about your reaction to them. This is about 7 years of you minimizing my feelings in enabling his behavior leading to this moment. I'm not letting him when I'm choosing not to lose myself. I didn't say another word. I turned, walked past stunned Emma, Lee and David, who looked like they were about to cry. I saw the confusion and concern on the faces of the bridesmaids and family members and hallway. I told Emily and David, I'm leaving. David reached out. Alex, wait. but I just shook my head, unable to speak anymore. I walked out of the side door, the venue the sounds of wedding news. Nick fading behind me, I found a taxi waiting outside, got in, and gave a driver my address. The drive home was a blur of known shock and adrenaline. My phone started ringing. Almost immediately Sarah, then her mother, my mother, David, Emily, friends. The screen was a car. The stream of incoming calls and frantic messages I couldn't answer. I just stared out the window, the perfect wedding day dissolving into chaos. I didn't go home or check into the first decent hotel I found, needing space, needing quiet. Once in a room, the missed calls and text piled up into the dozen. Its series messages cycled wildly, bewildered. Where are you? What happened? Accusatory. How could you do this to us? You ruined everything. And pleading, please come back, Alex. We can fix this. It was just a joke. The speed at which she returned to calling it just a joke and blaming me was chilling. Tax from David and Emily painted a picture of the scene I'd left behind. Total chaos. Sarah was alternating between hysterics and tried to figure out what to do. Mark, meanwhile, was reportedly working the crowd, spinning his narrative hard. He was telling anyone who would listen that I was unstable. But I'd had a sudden mental breakdown, that I've gotten cold feet, and invented the accusations against him as an excuse to bail on the wedding. He was playing the victim, the loyal friend who was just trying to warn everyone, and was now being unfairly blamed. Sarah's parents were apparently siding with Sarah. Mark, furious about the embarrassment and the wasted money, demanding answers. And for me to fix this mess. My parents were in shock, but quickly shifted to being protective of me. Emily and David were incredible. They immediately started counteracting Mark's narrative, talking to guests and family members were confused, calmly explaining exactly what Mark did. The Answer series dismissal of it. They shared screenshots of Mark's messages themselves to prove his malice. It was validating to know I had their unwavering support. Even as the social fallout began, friends were split. Some instantly reached out to me, horrified by Mark and Siri's actions, while others were hesitant. Clearly, having heard Mark's version of events, it's been a little over 2 weeks since that day. The initial wave of chaos has subsided, but the emotional wreckage is extensive. I stay with Emily for a while, needing the support. The financial hit from a non-refundable wedding costs is significant, tens of thousands of dollars down. A drain, a constant bitter reminder of what happened. But honestly, the money is secondary to the feeling of betrayal. I haven't spoken directly to Sarah since I walked out. She continued to call and text for a few days. The message is still a mix of confusion, blame, and attempts to minimize. Her mother called Emily, furious about the cost and the embarrassment, demanding that I apologize. Emily shut down cold, calmly stating that I was the one who was wrong, and that they wouldn't be discussing it further. It was clear where her family stood, on the side of appearance and convenience over truth and integrity. David, bless him, managed to dig up moral Mark. He has friends who overlap with Mark's circle. It turns out Mark has a history of sabotaging serious relationships. Though never something this public or extreme, he's driven away boyfriends before, always subtly undermining them, until Sarah eventually ended things. I'm leaving Mark as her sole constant. There is even a persistent rumor that Mark was actually in love with Sarah, or at least fixated on keeping or for himself, though he never acted on it directly. This added another layer to his possessiveness and explained why he go to such lengths. Emily also shared something Sarah had confided in her years ago before Sarah and I got serious. Apparently, there was a difficult period in Siri's late teens/early 20s, a personal crisis she went through, and Mark was the only one who was consistently there for her. Sarah told Emily she felt like she owed Mark, that he was a rock dude during that time, creating a deep-seated dependency or guilt that made it almost impossible for her to set healthy boundaries with him, even when he was clearly harming her relationships. It doesn't excuse her behavior, but it adds a tragic, frustrating dimension to her enabling. About a week after the non-wedding, I finally agreed to last phone call with Sarah, with Emily listening, and for support. Siri's tone had shifted slightly. She sounded more resigned, less frantic, but still fundamentally unwilling to accept blame. She started by saying Mark felt terrible, that his joke had been misunderstood, She still framed it as a misunderstanding. As my overreaction, I cut her off calmly, methodically, and laid it all out, not just the screenshots, but the pattern, the work emergency, the anniversary trip, the private information, the constant undermining, the years of me expressing my discomfort and being dismissed, and finally the wedding day. Hey, her choosing to defend Mark and prioritize avoiding a scene over defending me from a vicious public attack. I used the information David and Emily had gathered about his history and her past reliance on him to show that this wasn't random, it was a pattern she refused to break. Her reaction was sharp, defensive. You're making him sound like a villain. He's my best friend my whole life. You're asking me to choose. You clearly never understood our friendship. Understand it perfectly now, Sarah. I told her my voice from. And that's why I can't be with you. You're right, I'm asking you to choose. I'm asking you to choose a healthy, respectful relationship with me over a toxic boundary, less dynamic, with someone who actively tries to harm relationships. And you made your choice, not just a day, but for years. There was silence on the other end. Then she got angry again. Fine, go. Then if you think you're so much better, I think IDs.